one of the big moments that happened in your life was when you lost someone special. And grief generally, I would say, is one of the most challenging things we all at some point faced in our lives. Either drag you down or give you that push, as you mentioned before.
Listen, it's a lot to unpack. It's really a lot to unpack. And I'll tell you why. You know, it is important to leave the past behind because we can't change it, right? At the same time, there's many things in our lives that are going to stay with us. And it's almost like I look at things that happen almost like a physical thing. So if you have a car accident and because of that car accident, you have a limp, you're going to have that limp with you. And when you lose someone or you're going through a tragedy or a trauma or something like that, that's going to stay with you. So I think that it is important to let go of the past. It's not always possible, and I always like to say these things because then people start thinking, well, if I can't let it go, then I can't move forward. And so I believe it's a process. I believe that it's a constant reminder that we can't change the past, but how can we look at the past and really bring it into the future? So, leaving the past behind you is important, right? At the same time, if you're still thinking about that person, you will be thinking about that person, right? But we have to understand that when we get into trouble, it's when we're trying to change the past. And so instead of focusing on changing the past, what we need to do is change our future, change our identity, and see where we can take this. So, it's a very powerful quote. And once again, it's like these dualities where they have multiple meanings when you really get into it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And you're bringing this into, I would say, reality.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to say we move on. It's very easy to say leave it behind. And sometimes, because it's so easy to say, when it happens to you, you feel kind of disappointed that you haven't done it, and that puts you even more down.
Yes.
So based on what you're saying, I understand that, listen, it's gonna hurt, and it's gonna be there forever.
Yeah, it is.
You should focus on how you live with what has just happened and improving. And I just want to know, how was it like for you? I know we talked about spirituality, but how were your emotions at the time? What were you feeling, and how is it now?
Yeah. So, they always say it comes in waves, right? That's a very popular saying, and it is very true. It is a very true thing. It comes in waves. There's certain things that, there's the grieving process in general, right? And I think that everyone can grieve differently. And I think that for me, it's a great question. I mean, there was a lot of times where it was sadness. It was a lot of times where it wasn't sadness. And a lot of it also because of my son, handling that and really having to do the responsible thing of getting out there sometimes really changed my mood because I didn't have the luxury of just lying in bed in a dark room. And I remember there would be points where I stopped getting these waves and I really didn't get sad. And for me, I still do. I have a nice Spotify playlist that I like to listen to that reminds me of Dvorah. And there's certain things, TV shows that I watch that for whatever reason reminds me because we're humans. And I remember for a while, whatever that, maybe 2 months, 3 months, I stopped getting these waves of sadness. And I remember thinking to myself, it's so weird that I'm not getting a wave of sadness. And even some people would call me, because it's interesting, when you lose someone, people don't always know right away. I mean, I literally, just so you know, just got a call 2 weeks ago. Literally 2 weeks ago, they just found out that my wife passed away. Because these are not friends, they're not acquaintances, they're just people in the world that know people. And if they're not connected on social media, so it's always going on. And I remember when this wave wasn't hitting me for a while, I was kind of like, well, I wonder what's happening. I wonder why I'm not getting any of these waves of sadness. And when I got this wave of sadness next, instead of being sad, I was actually kind of happy because I was able to experience that wave of sadness as a human experience. And I was able to view that wave of sadness as like, oh, this is my connection to her. And this is something really, really beautiful even though it's sad. And it kind of changed my perception on it. And so I think that it's just one of these things that sometimes even emotions can have different emotions. Even sometimes being happy can create sadness, and sometimes being sad can create happiness. It's very interesting, you know? And I think that sometimes naming emotions, sometimes pretending that you're out to dinner with an emotion and actually having a conversation with it is a very powerful thing. And I think that for anyone out there, try to expand your words for emotions. Meaning, don't just say, I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm glad, you know, like try to use a dictionary. There's so many websites out there. Try to really figure out exactly how you feel, because when the way our brains work, the powerful words that we have, it could help us a lot. And another thing is just, you can name it a name. You can say, okay, well, Bob is here. Like if you're angry, you can call Bob and say, okay, well, Bob is here. Let's have a conversation with him, right? So that's part of learning to love those other parts of ourselves.